Guess who's back? Mr. Annoying himself. Kidding. Second coffee. Feeling about 10 pounds heavier after turkey dinner last night, which was an absolute hit. Hope everybody else's was. You're in Canada and you had some turkey. Yeah, it was fun. Went to pick up the ladies, and coincidentally, one of our superhero First Nation lady's granddaughter was there, and she's a little nervous at first. She never met me before. And I'm like, get in the car, you're coming for dinner. She's like, no, I don't think so, I'm gonna stay. I'm like, no, you're not, you get in the car. And it was great. She came too. A good time was had by all. Lots of storytelling. And yes, of course, the granddaughter had as well seen a Sasquatch before as well. And we're actually planning a trip. We're all gonna go for a couple of nights sleepover to a small remote community. I don't know exactly when yet. Fairly soon, I hope. And we're gonna hang out. And I think I'm gonna cook a elk shoulder. I kept a shoulder blade, and I always keep the shoulder blade of all my game animals with a bunch of meat on it because I love to slow roast those suckers and share it. And I think it would be a great one to cook on the beach. I mean, everybody's enthusiastic about that one. But anyway, it's funny. Our one friend says, oh yeah, you come out to Mom's place, you're gonna see one. It's just the way it is, right? Not that I'm not craving to see another Sasquatch, but I would love to go out and see the home and the community where these ladies grew up and listen to their stories, and whatever happens, happens. But anyway, here's what happened last night. We're telling all sorts of very interesting stories, lots of knowledge sharing, lots of laughs, and I went to take him home last night, and while I was there at their place dropping him off, Sarah phone's panicking. Get this one. Panicking because there was some reflecting bright eyes in the frickin' yard while I was gone, right after, well, probably would have been 10 minutes after we left. And she said she had tears in her eyes when I came home, shaking. And our house is, keep in mind, our house is very soundproof. Like, I'll be inside the house and all of a sudden, boom, the door opens up. And she parks her vehicle right beside the house, 5 feet from it. I don't hear shit. I don't hear anything driving up. I never hear anybody driving up. UPS, whoever drives down, I don't hear nothing. And she had the dishes going, the dishwasher and the sink going, and she heard these, what she said, quote, it sounded like a child being murdered. That's what she heard in her backyard in the darkness. So, and she said, what the hell's that? And she heard that over top of all that noise with the back door closed. So her and her son, who's now 19, went out back with a flashlight, and she said, here's these eyes. Down low to the ground, we have a chunk of the backyard goes like this, and then it drops down in height. I don't know, probably 3 feet. And then slopes all the way to the back timber where the bears were coming out. And the chickens and chick coops back there too. And obviously I'm thinking it's probably just that cougar. But she said, I go, how far apart were the eyeballs? And I guess they also got a pellet gun right there, a high power pellet gun that sounds like a 22 when it goes off. And Colby shot, her son shot the pellet gun right by it. And all it did was move to the side. She said it kept going something like this, moving back and forth, the eyeballs. And I'm like, what color were the eyeballs? She said like a white color. So how far apart were they? And she goes, she starts going like this. And I'm like, what? I go, well, just so you know, our eyes are only, what, 1 3/4 inches apart, possibly? I've never measured, I'm guessing, because I do know for a fact that a large grizzly bear's eyeballs are only 4.5 inches apart from here to here. I know that, and I told her that. She's like, oh. Furthermore, a cougar, a big, mature, old cougar's eyes are very close together. I'll show you what they look like, actually. Check this out. This is the skull of what was, when it was primed out, a very, very large cat. Big cougar. If you're a hunter, if you're into the record book shit with the tape measure, it's basically a record book sized cat. But look at his teeth. Alright, see those teeth? Are all ground down, wore out. See them all, what would be the canines, upper and lower, all ground off, busted off. And he actually had a hole. The veterinarian pointed it out, or the taxidermist pointed out that I know, and this guy had a hole in the top of his skull right there. Do you see that? And I think that was one too. But either way, he said that's the signature, those holes. Those are the signature holes of another cat that tried to kill him and he narrowly escaped. And in that hole was the tip of another cougar's tooth. And how long it had been in there, who knows. Interesting find. But anyway, getting back to the point I was going to make. Just so you know, this is about as big as I get. Now, if you put this beside my head, you'll see how far apart these eyeballs actually are compared to us. All right? I'm not going to do this because obviously I put it close to the camera. So that is right in line with my eyeballs. You see how wide they are? I'm not saying it wasn't a cougar in my yard last night, but what I am saying is if you're to describe it, those eyes are only that far apart. Okay? Basically the same as ours. I'm guessing, but she's going like that. I'm like, what? She goes, yeah, maybe had that big. And I'm like, what? Did you see the head? She said, no. Did you see the body? She said, no. It scared the absolute shit out of them. And yeah, very bizarre. I didn't feel alarmed, but I did go outside and grab my rifle just in case it was the big cat heading over to the goat pen. Who knows? I don't know. The horses were stampeding around out in the dark, and they're black, so you can't really see them. But I could hear them. I know my horse's feet, and they're running around, so there you go. Thought I'd share that for the hell of it. Not that it means anything to anyone, but some weird shit happens, I'll tell you what, around here, right? Of course, everything went dead silent by the time I got home. And that's that. So, what else? I got a lot of people. I got a lot of voices to hear. I got to fix my truck. I don't know if the fuel pump went or not, but I'm stubborn. I fix my own shit, but I gotta dive into that damn thing and fix it. I'm so lucky because I had it. I was by myself with the trailer behind it, an open flat deck trailer with my quad on the trailer and a 20 horsepower outboard 4-stroke outboard, sitting on it with a roll-up Zodiac. I had my gun, my bow, my optics in the truck, and I had all those elk quarters chilling on ice in the trailer. And I drove 17 hours to get home in very remote areas, and also there's quite some crime-ridden, unfortunately, some crime-ridden towns up north. And I can only imagine if my fuel pump had died on me then, or where. Oh my God, I'm lucky. I had kilometers to spare by the time I got home. Crapped right out, will not start. Turns over, and I can hear the pump going in the tank, but that doesn't mean anything. So anyways, I gotta do that today. And what else? What else? I get a lot of people emailing in saying, what do I do? What can we do? What can we do? Okay, there's nothing I can do when it comes to what's going on in your lifetime on your earth. When I asked some other people who are absolute diligent, hungry dogs, analysts from Europe, and they are looking into everything absolutely thoroughly. And they are a source, the Duran, where I get a lot of my information from, one source. And somebody asked them a question and answer, what can we do? And they said, you have to share knowledge, you have to talk. That's the number one thing that you can do. So for anybody out there that thinks they can't do anything when it comes to what's going on, possibly in your community, your world, your country, whatever, you speak out loud and you don't stand down, and then you share honest truth, and you encourage people to look for honest truth themselves. That's what you do. You do your part. And I'll get, of course, I've had another couple other knee-jerk people emailing me and insulting me, saying, oh yeah, and what are you doing? What am I doing? I believe last month I reached over 9 million views total. So what are you doing? What are you doing, right? It's not too hard. You can go on other people's YouTube channels as well who might be mouthing it up and see, well, let's just see what kind of a difference you're making in your community. And probably almost 10 out of 10 times it'll say this channel has no content. Oh, there you go. So that's one thing I can do, is I can speak out loud, share the truth with as many people as I can, and then I will in turn encourage other people to share as much knowledge as they can, but more importantly to encourage people to look into things themselves, not just ram it down their throat or belittle them if they don't believe you, but you need to encourage people to learn how to, again, look into things themselves, right? It's amazing to me how thoroughly that action has been basically almost annihilated from society, right? Because you're getting fed. It's getting fed to you. You're directed and fed, manipulated. Sorry, don't shoot the messenger. It's true. So you need to, everyone needs to speak out loud, speak honestly to as many people as you can. Even if you just tell one person today, convince them to look into something themselves, you did your part. And then, as soon as enough people realize the honest truth, shit starts to change. That's how it happens. That's how you do things, right? So there. Speak openly and honestly and share with people that don't get it, and encourage them in a positive manner to look into things themselves and look for the truth. Now, what else could you do? You can drop mainstream news. You can drop North American mainstream news sources like a hot potato and never go back. That is possibly that's probably the number one thing we can do as a community, is dump them, because it's a known fact the people in power own the mainstream news source in North America, the West, the collective West, and they own it. Why? Why do you think? Because whoever owns that mainstream news outlet owns your ass. That's a sad, true fact. So, take the power away from mainstream news. That's one thing you can do. Take it away, you ignore it, you drop it, you never mention their names ever again. You don't mention the names of any source that you want to not get attention. You just don't say it. You ignore them, you drop them, and you start looking for honest information from the people. Right? That's what we do here. We're sharing knowledge from the people, and that's why we flipped over 270 some odd thousand people, subscribers the other day here, because it's about the people, and it's the voice of the people, and the people who want to control your voice and my voice have been kicked to the curb here. Right? See how it works? I never set out to get these subscribers, never have. I've never encouraged people to subscribe. I've actually told people to leave here more than I've told to stay, right? And it's just happened. However this happened, it happened. You give the voice back to people, treat everyone with respect, and support them, and this is what happens, right? So do this. Do this. Dump mainstream news, use your own mind, lead yourself, look into things yourself, and share honest knowledge. That's what you can do. Now, here we go. Get back to sharing important voices, not just my annoying voice. What? This is a weird title. Large being that won't die. Hello, my name is Junior, and these are occurrences. I live in central Oklahoma. My wife and I are watching a movie at about 10:30 p.m. when we heard a strange, high-pitched call come from beside the house. I paused the movie and we heard nothing, so we resumed what we were watching. 40 minutes later, we heard a loud stomping going across the roof of the house. See, that would suck. I proceeded to the far end of the house and noticed a shadow in the window of the laundry room, and I stopped and told my wife to bring me the shotgun as I stayed and watched the window of the door that led to the back of the house. 12 gauge in hand, I slung the door open to find nothing but the pit bull hiding in his doghouse. I was standing on the back stairs about 4 feet off the ground. I surveyed the land from left to right with the flashlight and shotgun and saw nothing. From the back porch to the fence separating the 20 acres from my house was only about 30 feet. As I swept left to right, I seen a black mass emerge from the tall grass on my right side, and it stood up looking me eye to eye. I'm 5'11", standing on a 4-foot tall set of stairs, and all I can think about is how massive this being is. We're talking about damn near 10 feet tall, shoulders around 40 to 48 inches wide, and all I could do is rack off 3 rounds of a 12 gauge number 4s into its center mass. I'd like to add that I'm an avid skeet shooter, and I know and known for not missing a shot. After racking off 3 shots, center mass, the being let out a yell and stepped over my 42-inch tall fence and ran off into the darkness. I went into the house, pulled up my .500 Smith & Wesson, and headed across the field, following the tracks toward my pond. When I arrived at the pond, I found nothing, like it had walked into the pond and disappeared. I found no tracks anywhere else, and all the way around the pond was clear of any signs. Next morning, looking into everything, I found no blood, no hair on the fence, and nothing to point to this being shot 3 times. Anything that can take 3 rounds of number 4 12 gauge and not leave a trace is definitely on my weird shit-o-meter. I wish I could have had a better visual at the being, but it was almost dark behind my house. The security light out front gave a shadowed glimpse, but that's all. So I know it was 9 to 10 feet tall and at least 40 inches wide. Hope this helps get the truth out there. Sincerely, JR. Well, it's a holy shit. Now, how far away was that again? Talking about down here, 10 feet tall, 12 feet center mass, 42 inch. I was standing in the back stairs, 4 feet off the ground, surveyed the land right, back porch, 20 acres from my house, which only about 30 feet. Huh. That's creepier than shit. And I don't know. I mean, everybody knows my stance on shooting something of that description, and from what we know of what they can or cannot do, it's not a good idea, man. It's not a good idea to start a fight with something with that description unless they're starting a fight with you. But I get it. They're running across the roof, the roof of your house, and you're not familiar with this shit. And all of a sudden something like that stands up in the grass looking at you in your yard. I'd imagine there is a shit pile of human beings that are going to start pulling that trigger, right? It's a high risk. I feel it's a very, very high risk action. Is to just start thumping gunfire into these beings without them giving you a full, solid, threatening action towards you first. But okay, bug, get out of my face, little bastard. Yeah, crazy, man. I guess that's all you saw, right? Just the dark form, not much detail. Like I said, it was almost black. So glad you survived it. Surprised you haven't had anything else happen since. If you guys look back, there's the incident at Ape Canyon at Mount St. Helens. Remember that one? There's thoroughly documented. Even the I think it was detectives and the police officers went up there after those miners had that altercation in their cabin all night long. They shot that thing unprovoked in the timber on the edge of that ravine, dumped off the ravine. That night, all hell broke loose at their cabin all night long. So, something to think about. Creepy, man. Thanks for sharing that. Hope it helped you. Hope this channel's helping you. Nobody wants to experience that experience, I'll tell you what. Nobody. This next one's titled, well, now it's titled Red. This next one is titled, He's Back. Hello, my name is Bill Haney from Gore, Oklahoma, and you can use my name, I don't give a shit. You're a free man, Bill. 5 years ago, my son and I went striper fishing about midnight one night at the lower Illinois River. We parked my truck next to the river. My son was fishing in front of my truck, and I told him I was going to walk upriver a little ways. So I went up to a pool about 75 yards from him. When we first got there, I told him something didn't feel right about this trip. The hair on the back of my neck was standing up. Back to the pool I was fishing in, I guess. We were there for about 30 minutes. All of a sudden, something let out a scream that scared the shit out of me. I went to reeling my reel and rod, and I heard the gravel. I turned around, and all I had was my damn pole to fight this damn thing off with. It was my son. He ran from where he was to me in 10 seconds. He said, "Dad, what the hell was that?" I told him, "I don't know, but let's get the F out of here." I was shaking like an effing leaf. We get to the truck, shine our flashlights at my truck, and there was two of them sons of bitches standing about 20 yards from my truck. One was about 8 to 9 feet tall. The other was about 6 feet tall. I told him, grab a handful of rocks. We'll throw them at the go. Throw them at the go to the driver's side, jump in, and we'll haul ass. So we did. I told people about it. They just laughed. My wife didn't believe me either. That brings me to, he's back. I haven't been fishing in that place in 5 years. So my wife wanted to go striper fishing. So I took her to a large gravel bar about 200 yards down from the first time we seen this damn thing. It was just her and I, and there it was. 11:30, we're sitting on 5-gallon buckets about a quarter of a mile from my truck. All of a sudden I hear a loud crack. I said to her, did you hear that? She said, yes, it sounded like a gunshot. I said, no, it wasn't a gunshot. All of a sudden we heard the biggest damn crack. An effing tree came crashing down. There was no wind. She said, let's go now. We made it back to the truck in 2 minutes. She beat me back. Now, I'm not going back unless I got my pit bull and my 308 with me. This bastard scared me for the last time. I'm going to scare his ass this time. Holy shit, dude. There you go. More members of the Club of No Return. Creepy. It's endless. It's endless. I wouldn't go shooting one if you get a chance. Not unprovoked, man. This is titled 14 to 51, My Encounter. Hello, Steve. Found your channel when I ran into the neighbor guy next door. We got on the subject of Sabby after he told me he was from Brown County area and said I should check you out, so I did. The stories have helped me with a few things I question about my experience. I tell people, but I don't think they ever really believe me. You know the ones. I'm not an actual hunter like you, but I do love the woods. As kids, we spent most of our time in the woods doing something. I was about 14 or so. Me and the boys used to go down to the railroad trestle bridge and hang out and do boy things. It was outside a bit of the little town Riley, Indiana. We walked or rode our bikes there. One day I was bored and went down to the trestle to look around and scout as I went down the hill to the creek. It was not very high or deep that day, middle of summer, so it was just above maybe a so-called brook running. I went to jump across the creek, and I did go up a small hill that led to a field. As I jumped across and looked down, I seen a very big footprint. I knew exactly what it was. It was fresh also. The chills went up my neck, and I got an eerie feeling, so I looked around for a second and then bolted back across the creek fast as I could and ran down the train track back to the road as fast as I could. Never seen nothing or heard anything, and I never went back there again, at least not by myself as I can remember. Switching in time, about 2 years ago, I was 51. Me and my son went camping close to Brown County, Indiana, outside of Bloomington, Indiana, home of IU basketball at Payne Town Lake. My son was about 22 at the time. He had been in a motorcycle wreck and was still recovering. So we spent a night together there. I've been camping there many times in my life, and this was around springtime. Not many campers were there, maybe 2 or 3 at the most. We set up the tent, got the fire going, and fixed some food, and just hung out. We went to bed around 11 or so. My son went out quick, and I was having a hard time getting comfy in my cot. As I laid there restless, I heard in my mind, as I tried to go to sleep, "Good night, Kevin," out of the blue. I was like, what was that? I asked myself, kind of weird. So I finally went to sleep after hearing that. Just blew it off, And about 3 or 4 in the morning, I woke up to an awful, awful smell, like rotten trash. But it was a cold night. The air was heavy and wet. The smell just hung in the air. I said to myself, yep, that's a sabbe outside. I didn't think much more about it and went back to sleep. I didn't feel any feeling of harm. That morning, me and my son woke up feeling a bit rough from the first night camping. We sat there on the side of our cot, waking up, and all of a sudden we heard a roar in the woods not far away either. My son looked at me and said, "What was that?" And I said, "That is probably the sabbe I smelled last night." He looked shocked a bit, so we got up and ventured outside. No sign of sabbe or tracks, just a beautiful morning. That day he left. I stayed until dark. I couldn't shake staying another night, especially by myself. I loaded up in a hurry, frantic, like I felt I was being watched, left some apples, and got out of Dodge. The end. Thanks for sharing. Thanks, Steve, for sharing, Kevin. Well, there's another one. Thanks for the location. I'm sure there's a bunch of people here that are interested in the location for sure. And I'll bet if you've seen or heard that there, somebody else from your community did too, right? And I'll bet they're nodding right now and they're about to either comment in the comment section or possibly email one in. I just so you guys know, last night the ladies, one of the first things I always say when this topic comes up is how they were not taught to fear the Sasquatch, the sabbe. They weren't taught to fear them. But as we have been thoroughly shared with or explained to, there's a lot more going on out there than just these beings, right? There's a lot more going on out there than just these beings. And that is also what they were taught forever. Some dark shit going on, unfortunately. Don't know why. This is such a fun place to be, I'll tell you what. You're supposed to be anyway. It's not fun for many of us today. Here's another one. One story from my brother and one question from Vancouver Island. Hello. I enjoy the videos you create, reading people's experiences, and appreciate your ability to hunt. My grandpa wanted to teach me those skills, but got too sick to train me on the big rifles, although I could hit a bullseye with a .22 at 10 years old. I did earn the honor of being a good boy, even though I was a girl, but definitely took it as a compliment. My brother, since passed away, sorry to hear that, saw Bigfoot in a forested area of Shawnigan Lake when he was teenaged. He didn't talk about it much because he and his friends had eaten some magic mushrooms in the forest. He said it wasn't the mushrooms because when the Bigfoot came upon them, they'd only just eaten the mushrooms. It was just starting to get dark, and they had just eaten the mushrooms, sitting in the forest when a massive form came upon them. He could see the complete outline of the creature. And then it screamed at them, and they ran like hell out of the forest. I heard one scream around midnight in Honeymoon Bay. I went camping there numerous times when I was a kid. I didn't know what it was, and it didn't sound like anything I'd heard before. My roommate said it was probably a cougar, but that didn't sit right with me. The descriptions you read in the email sound more like what I heard, especially how it feels when you hear it, and I didn't think a cougar could scream that loud. I also spent many summers at Germanson River, about an hour from Germanson Landing. Not familiar with that place. And I've heard the sounds of loud boulders being tossed in the river when I'd go get water and felt that fear of being watched. But I always thought it was wild animals and the river noises as natural. But the stories you read have made me rethink these experiences. One time my grandpa and I came back to camp and the tent I slept in had been knocked down. It was an old-fashioned canvas tent with steel rods that went along the top part to form the roof and steel bars to the ground, and they were all bent. Oh shit, that would suck. I was only a child and thought that a grizzly had done this, but now I'm not so sure because the canvas wasn't ripped. You'd think a grizzly would rip the canvas. And also the reason we thought it was a bear is because one of the gas jugs that my grandpa used strictly for water had bite marks in the bottom of it. The jugs that I carried down to the river. Not really confirmation of anything, but odd similarities to the stories I've heard from your videos. This part is private for your ears only. Ah, shit, okay. Hold on a minute. Alright, here we go. Here's another one. I don't know if I should answer. As far as finding people who are like-minded with thoughts and where to move to be next to them, I wouldn't be the right guy to answer that. But everywhere you go, every community, there are very aware, intelligent human beings. Okay? There's some areas where there might be a handful, but it's just the people that you are possibly associating with. There's always going to be a lot of people out there who know what's up, know what's going on, and they probably just don't speak out loud too much because the confrontation with brain dead people is probably too much of a risk, right? So I wouldn't worry too much about where to. It's just more how you choose to carry yourself and who to associate with wherever you are, right? Possibly. So I guess the direct answer would be I'm not quite sure because I've never really. Oh, there's another bastard. These little no-see-em guys. I don't know where they're coming from, why they're in here. Get over here. Anyway, let's get somebody else heard. Another one. This is titled Being Followed. Hello, Stephen, watching and listening to the people's stories for about 6 months now and enjoying it very much. Thanks for helping us all with our telling. My name is Mark S. I live in Duluth, Minnesota or Montana. Sorry I'm getting screwed up. It's MN. Minnesota? By the Lester River. You can use my name, no problem. Finally, I heard a few stories from another Mark about his cabin at the Whiteface area, some thick forest that surrounds Duluth, and at the very point of Lake Superior, all the way to Canada. Michigan? Michigan's in, man. I'm like, okay, I'll type up mine and get it in. When I first came across your channel, I heard a story that explained how some people were being followed by something in the woods as they walked on a trail and having it stop and start as they would. It triggered my memory about this long-forgotten event. Okay, here it goes. 1971, I made friends with a kid in 7th or maybe 8th grade who had the same interest as myself. Typical boy stuff at the time. Guns, bows, arrows, exploring the woods, etc. School was out for the summer, and we planned an all-day hike in the woods on a fairly overgrown trail that, rumor had it, ended a couple miles in at an abandoned farmstead. A great place, we thought, to look for old bottles and whatever. So off we went in the morning with our small army surplus rucks, canteens, bag lunches, fixed blade knives, and kid-sized beginner 20-pound wood bows. It was going to be hot that day, so we just poked along in no hurry. After a couple-mile walk up this trail that crossed a stream, along the way we could see the run-down single-story farmhouse through the tangles that the trail had turned into. Upon a look into the broken-out windows, it was clear we couldn't trust going inside for fear of collapse, so we decided to circle around back and look for the farm dump location. The grass and bushes were waist high, and an 8-foot high, 20-foot long open structure could be seen 30 yards to one side that we speculated was for livestock or poultry. Continuing to slowly walk directly away from house, helping to find the dump, I almost fell in the barely covered well, which had a few rotted boards over it, and it looked deep but too dark to be sure. Right then we heard a low, menacing growl come from the poultry building that shocked us. We froze and listened. Another growl sent us quickly going back to the farmhouse, maybe 40 yards or so, not knowing what was making that noise. We were both shook and decided to climb up onto the roof using the windowsill for a step, working as a team with the bottom guy handing up the bows and quivers and the top guy pulling him up. Once we looked at the location, the growling, and I swear neither of us could believe what was there. 2 dogs, very sickly, looking and alerted to our position. Now that they could see us, I should add, that both of us weren't gabbers. We were always improving on our stealthiness in the woods. Anyway, these weren't just a couple of lost poodles. One was a German Shepherd and the other was a big St. Bernard type. Our level of fright just went off the chart. The Shepherd came right over, circling the house looking for a way up maybe. The bigger one stayed in the shade of the grass where it was growling on and off. After missing the circling Shepherd with my 4 field points, and my friend missing with 3 of his, we were left with an old flat metal broadhead that I had and 1 field point he had. At that point, overeating our bag lunches and burning up from the heat on that roof, with some real uncertainty about whether staying the night up there was going to happen. On a side note, I learned right then how important drinking water becomes. By now the sun was getting low and our spirits were lower. I didn't know exactly how long. We just sat there quietly thinking about how long it would be before someone would search for us, and knowing that they wouldn't even have a clue where to look. Almost at the time, then, both of us realized how completely quiet everything had gotten. No birds, nothing. I clearly remember how strange that felt. Twilight Zone strange. We couldn't see the Shepherd anywhere, or the other one for that matter, and a sense of extreme urgency to leave now came over us both. With knife in hand, I volunteered to climb down first, expecting to be pounced on at any second. Nothing happened. I helped him down, and back to back with arrows knocked, we made our way through the overgrowth to the trail and started a steady jogging pace out. Something could clearly be heard running, 20 to 30 yards parallel to us in the woods. I was in the back and remember telling him that the dogs are chasing us. That's all I could think of at the time. After just a few minutes of this, we both realized that it didn't sound at all like dogs running. And why didn't they just come straight down the trail behind us? I told my friend to stop abruptly on the count of 3. When we did, whatever it was also stopped, with maybe 2 extra steps. We didn't so much as blink for a minute, both just catching our breaths as quiet as possible. Those were heavy footfalls in there like an elephant. We decided to keep running and plan another stop. After running for what seemed like forever, we were out of breath and stopped quickly. Once again, it stopped with us, but I don't think it took any extra steps that time, and we were really focused on the sound it made. Total confusion on both our faces for sure. We then could see the steam up ahead and knew after that we had only another 200 to 300 yards to go to reach the gravel road. So it's off to the races, as fast as we can go with the little bit of remaining energy we had. Our follower in the woods stopped at the stream, as far as we could tell, and we kept up a shaky jog up the road for 50 yards or so before almost both collapsing from exploding lungs. When we got back to his house, we told his mother about the dogs, and she called the sheriff. My friend told me 2 days later that the sheriff told his mother that they had been looking for those dogs for some time after reports of deer chasing and miscellaneous other complaints, and to thank us for finding them. and that they were located and dispatched. Nothing was ever spoken of the other part of the story, and I had buried it in the back of my mind until I listened to another viewer's story you read, and like a light bulb, turning it on, all came back, and I knew right then what was crashing through the brush that day. Thanks again for all you are doing. P.S. I told my son to watch your channel and learn. He's always hiking alone in the woods of the north shore of Lake Superior, and he had an encounter at Eagle Mountain Point, up the shore and inland, highest point in Minnesota. Oh, Minnesota. After setting out through the forest to get to the mountain base, his phone went goofy, and on the way back out, he heard strange whooping sounds around him. Because you and your channel were both much more tuned in whenever we go into the forest. Perfect. Thanks for that share, man. That is good news. You guys are in tune and you're listening to the people, right? You're listening to the people, taking note and carrying yourselves with that knowledge when you're in the woods. Perfect. It's a win. I don't know why they do the following part. I don't get it. It's not nice. I tell you, that reminded me of a story of myself over 20 years ago. I was never much of a gun hunter, always with a bow, and I think I shared how I started with a bow earlier. So I didn't come from a family that hunted, and you could not hunt with a firearm alone unless you're 19 or something. So I hunted with a bow and arrow forever. Then I finally bought a rifle. It was a .303 British, an old World War II rifle with a 9 or 10 shot magazine that slid in the bottom, peep sights, flip up rear sight. And I'd take that the odd time if I went hunting with guys that hunted with guns. Anyway, one time, an old friend of mine who's passed away now, he had a remote chunk of property off of the Malahat, Vancouver Island, under the big power lines. And he said, hey, come out and hunt the property anytime. There's a bunch of deer up there. I'm like, all right. And one time I decided to go up and take a walk by myself up those power lines. So I'm heading west. And I only had 2 rounds, maybe 3 in my pocket. Stuffed them in the rifle. And I'm walking along. And I'm walking up the old power line road. I'm standing on a mossy rock. Stepped off the mossy rock, but I looked down below me. And here comes, we're talking the middle of nowhere. No houses, no shit, nothing. And here comes 6 mature Rottweilers. No collars, in a pack. Nobody with them. And I'm like, holy shit. And they looked at me like, they all looked at me like, holy shit. I'm like, whoa. This is like some kind of a frickin' satanic movie scene, right? And then they looked, and boom, their heads went down, and here they all come straight at me. But they weren't menacing at all. Either way, it doesn't matter. I got no tree to climb, nothing. And I jacked one in and shot one over their heads right away. And they all stopped and went, whoa, what was that? And then I shot off another of my 3 rounds. I was 2 down, and that sent them bucking it back down the road. Disappeared, and that's the way I had to go to get back. So I ran as fast as I could to get to that lip where I could look over and see if I could see them. So I want to know which way they went, or as long as they kept going. And they were just hightailing it out of there, and then they disappeared into the forest. Crazy, right? Who the hell bumps into 6 mature Rottweilers with no human being and no collars in the middle of nowhere? And then later on, I got back to my buddy's place. He said that I think he said there was a place that bred them and raised them farther up the highway somewhere, and figures they must have got loose. But that's not a fun scene, right? Anyway, see, who else can we get shared before I go and dive into the truck and start my day of swearing my face off, knuckle busting with wrenches. All right, what's this one? This is titled 10-Foot Dogman. Just caught this off my auto play. Just sent some pic. Thank you, Steve Tong. There is some photos. All right, 1, 2 photos. There's 2 photos sent in. And he put some kind of a filter on them, and that's all I got. I don't even know what autoplay is. But thanks, Tom. I'll post them up for everybody to look at. Looks kind of creepy. Obviously, with the filter, it looks like something, doesn't it? Definitely looks like a canine to me, ish, or Who knows? Maybe it's maybe I could do it this way. It's more simpler when I can do it that way. I don't know if this camera will do justice, but that's what the first picture looks like. Oh, there's a shadow in there, isn't there? Is that helping? All right. You guys see that? And this is with the filter. Hold on. And that's with the filter. Odd photo. I don't know if somebody is seeing something they've seen before. Who knows? I don't know. I'm sure you're going to hear about it in the comment section below, right? But just a couple more goofy pictures to me. Not being familiar with the dog heads, the Dogman, whatever you want to call them. There you go. So, I gotta get my ass in gear. I got a freaking truck I gotta fix. Shit, I got some more fencing gotta do. Hold on. One quick side note. This is $50 Canadian right here. This is money, cash money, $50. Doesn't get too much today, but you can get a lot for somebody. And just in case you didn't know, the Starbucks at first, we heard that Starbucks, I can't remember last time I went to Starbucks, but the last I heard was Starbucks in the UK started refusing cash money from the community. Now, they've all gone cashless. So, a lot of people probably think, well, I don't use cash much anyways. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. This is Canada. And it's not Canada I'm disappointed in, it's the dirtbags running it, and it's the globalists that are having a major negative impact on our communities. This is Canada, this is Canadian money, and people work their asses off for this cash, and if they want to use cash, it's legal tender in this country. So, a skid bag, slimy business like Starbucks cannot tell us that our money isn't good enough for them in the form of cash. Right? And this leads down a very dark road for every one of us. A very dark road. All right? So what I think I might do today, if I'm in the right mood, in the right neighborhood, I'm going to go through the drive-thru and I'm going to order up one hell of an order. A real good one. Something that's probably a pain in the ass to make. And I'm going to go to that counter and I'm going to submit them my cash. And if they don't like it, I'm going to say, well, that's kind of shitty, isn't it? And I'm going to drive away. And I'm going to keep on doing it every chance I get. And I'm going to encourage everyone to do the same. Is that a dirtbag thing to do? Which one's worse? Which one's worse? Is it a business trying to dictate to us that our legal tender that we worked our asses off for isn't good enough for them? And they are going to lead the charge in convincing other businesses to do the same? No, they don't get to do that to us. Because we're going to fight back and do something back to them so they get it. They get it that they do not dictate to us whether or not our money's good enough or not. Okay? That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to create havoc for them. Because they got it coming. What else? Clip the other day. Bill Gates decided to contribute, the Gates Foundation decided to contribute $200 million towards the digital ID, global digital ID program. So digital ID, digital currency. Just so you guys know, there are people pushing to push this forward, including the Canadian government right now, the criminal Canadian government. But I want you guys to picture something, all right? I think this is already going down in China. Let's just say you did not fight back in the early stages like today. Hold on a minute. And let's just say it went through. Well, we're using digital money, okay? You got your little digital money, your digital ID, and it's all in this little device. And let's just say somebody decided they didn't like what you posted today online. So you're going to get a little bit of a timeout and you can't go shopping for a week. Or maybe you're not allowed to buy X amount of fuel this week because you've been bad. And they can't do that because it's digital currency, digital ID, and they got you by the short and curlies, all right? They got you. You're not going to be able to do shit. Let's just say as well, they might have monitored your spending, which you know they would. and they decide that, well, you spent too much money on clothing this month, so you're going to be suspended for another month. Right? See what I'm getting at? And there's already a business called PayPal, who I am not going to support starting today, and they have already started to. It's easy to Google it up. I mean, look into it yourselves. Look into it yourself. But PayPal is now going to charge you, if you've got it in there, $2,500 for speaking online the way they do not approve of. This is happening right now. And that's just a slight little taste of what they want coming our way, is to be able to control how you speak. How amazing is that, that there is a business available today in North America who can steal from you $2,500 if they decide that you have been speaking in a fashion they don't approve of publicly. What? Right? Anybody getting pissed off by this? A little bit of a red flag, a little bit of an alarm? Or are you going to look the other way? What are you going to do about it? So, I believe there is an alternative place to do the exact same thing. I'm going to find out which is the best one, and I'm going to share it with all you guys. But right now, starting today, PayPal is completely rubbed off the board, done, gone, finished. Please don't take my word as gold. Please look into it yourself. All right, look into yourself, and if you come up with the fact that PayPal is now thinks that it can fine you, steal money from you for not speaking in the correct fashion publicly, share that information with as many people as you can, and let's get that business deleted and annihilated and gone. Okay? Because we run this show. The people run the show. All right? We control ourselves. We decide what we're going to do, what we're going to say, what we're going to do with our money. We decide everything, not somebody else. They don't get to do that, okay? Starbucks does not get to decide that your cash isn't good enough. They're not in that position, and we will not allow them to be in that position, right? Not in our countries anyway. It's very important. And for business, PayPal, to steal legally too. They're legally allowed to steal money from you for not speaking the way they want you to speak. They got to go. It's time for them to go. The people need to speak. The people need to be in control, and tell them that they're not allowed to do that. All right? There you go. There's my rant. I got to go. Got shit to do. I got to go to Starbucks and make a big order.